Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith. I'll be conducting our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It is a bit of a cloudy day here at the Cape as we are awaiting the 21st Falcon 9 launch of the year so far. Cloudy conditions across Brevard County, so unfortunately it may not be the best launch viewing for those who are not in the immediate vicinity of the rocket. So thinking of folks over in Orlando or even perhaps just a little bit further to our south within the county. However, this is flying in a southeasterly trajectory, which we'll talk much more about the trajectory as we get on through the count, as it is quite unique and special for this mission. Hopefully folks a little bit further south, I'm talking truly South Florida, may have a better vantage point if the cloud conditions are more optimal where you happen to be located. Taking a quick look at some of the weather data coming in right now, you can see what the cloud situation is like here in central to southern Florida. So again, not the most ideal conditions when it comes to best launch viewing, but you take the cards as they're dealt. 45th Weather Squadron forecast a 95% chance of favorable conditions at liftoff as far as conditions for the rocket to be able to fly. That's not for visibility, of course. If for whatever reason SpaceX needs to pivot to a launch opportunity tomorrow, conditions do deteriorate a bit. And that backup scenario drops down to about a coin flip with the thick cloud layers rule and the cumulus cloud rule both coming into play. A little bit stronger liftoff winds in the 24-hour backup scenario as well. Supporting tonight's launch as far as coverage is concerned, our photographer Michael Kane out and about getting ready to do some still photography with us. Our Adam Bernstein is off for this mission, but we are fortunate to be joined by our friend John Pisani, helping us out with some tracking work here at the Cape. Appreciate him stepping in. We're also joined this evening by our friends Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions, as well as Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. Currently T-minus 55 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. SpaceX at the moment is working towards a T0 liftoff of its Falcon 9 rocket coming up at 6:21 p.m. Eastern. That's 23:21 UTC for our friends around the world. Speaking of our friends, I want to thank the more than 1,400 of you who are with us live as we're getting things going tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, sharing the stream. Allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. I want to thank our moderators in the live chat helping us out tonight. Jeff Hansen, Callistia Lee, holding it down for us this evening. Be sure to keep an eye out for any of the other mods who may happen to cruise on in throughout the course of the countdown tonight. These live launch opportunities are made possible by our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like JJ Jones, Jacques Merd, My Honey, Greg Williams, Bubba Ray, Mark Potachnik, Jersey Jen, Joe Hallett, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in the Cape in 4K. Speaking of our channel member community, I want to thank Callistia Lee, our moderator, and Stephen Frazier for both gifting some Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that from the both of you. And to our newest 11 channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Callistia and Stephen in the live chat. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other happenings in the realm of space and spaceflight, go ahead and use that YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that is always greatly appreciated. To that end, I want to thank Kumar John for a 20 rupee Super Chat. Appreciate you, Kumar, for that. Kara with a $10 Super Chat. Thank you, Kara, who says, I'm in the Cape for this launch and seeking employment with SpaceX at the Cape. Well, best of luck to you in your ventures. Also want to thank channel member, moderator Jeff Hansen for a $10 Super Chat as well. He says, go Cape, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink. Godspeed, 1080. 1080 is the tail number of the booster being used on today's particular Falcon 9 flight. Going to be flying for a 16th time today, supporting the launch of 23 Starlink satellites heading into low Earth orbit. It's a busy time in spaceflight, as it always seems to be here in the United States. Right now, I've got two robotic landers that are cruising on their way to the moon. One that just did a flyby of the moon. That was iSpace's Resilience lander. It's going to be targeting a landing in the next few months. Meanwhile, the Firefly Aerospace Blue Ghost lunar lander has started to lower its orbit around the moon. It has been in a highly elliptical orbit and is beginning to refine that orbit as it's targeting a touchdown coming up here on March 2nd, looking at a landing at 3:45 a.m. Eastern on March 2nd, Sunday. Appreciate all of you that have taken the time to check out our video on the Firefly Blue Ghost lander here on YouTube. If you haven't, it's a nice little encapsulation of the milestones from liftoff to the point where it completed its lunar orbit insertion burn, and a look ahead at the milestones remaining up to the point of landing on the moon, and if successful, what it's going to be doing once it's on the lunar surface. Of course, coming up next week, we're also looking for a good launch aboard another Falcon 9 rocket of Intuitive Machines' IM-2 lander. First one of those Nova Sea landers was called Odysseus. This one coming up here is Athena. That particular Falcon flight is not a dedicated mission, as was the case last time. No, this is a rideshare mission, with the Nova Sea lander being the featured spacecraft. But it's also going to be sharing a Falcon 9 rocket with Astroforge's Odin spacecraft, as well as the Lunar Trailblazer from NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, JPL. We'll have lots more to say about all of those missions coming up here in the days to come as we get ready to see that rocket launch. It's got a window that opens up coming up here in just over a week starting on Wednesday, February 26th. In the meantime, we're now less than 15 minutes away from the planned launch of this Falcon 9 rocket with 23 Starlink satellites on board. So let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline, the sequence of nominal events as SpaceX prepares to launch its Falcon 9 rocket from its workhorse pad, Space Launch Complex 40. Generally speaking, at T-minus 38 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director will make the call on the start of propellant load today. SpaceX takes its pull electronically, so if it feels like it's in a good position to do so, it can take that pull a little bit earlier than that. Generally speaking, 38 minutes out is when that happens, so just about 10 minutes from where we are right now. When the go-ahead is given, prop load begins at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, that is a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T-minus 30 minutes is when first stage helium load begins. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Same will happen on the second stage about 4 minutes thereafter. T-minus 23 minutes is when second stage RP-1 loading wraps up. Then T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the strong back chill down process begins. That's when SpaceX is conditioning the feed lines at the pad prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. We see that manifest here at pad 40 as the so-called big vent, which begins at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds, lasting till roughly T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds, setting up again that second stage LOX load process to begin at the 16-minute mark. T-minus 7 minutes is when the engine chill process gets underway. It's when SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, those Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster. It helps protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. That's when the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, reclines a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. It stays in that position until liftoff. At that point, it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. T-minus 3 minutes is when the first stage liquid oxygen loading wraps up. Same will be true on the second stage about a minute thereafter, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call out that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds out. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, currently targeting 6:21 p.m. Eastern, 23:21 UTC, T-minus 45 minutes and 55 seconds. Time now T-minus 40 minutes and counting. Just a couple minutes away from the point at which SpaceX is expected to make the call on the start of prop load for tonight's mission. With the last launch, we saw the liftoff of the flight leader for SpaceX as far as their Falcon boosters are concerned. That was the 26th launch of B-1067. Starting to keep track of the boosters that are the top 5 frequent flyers that are still in service for SpaceX. The next two come in a tie for second spot at 23 flights apiece, B-1063 and 1071. It's followed up in the fourth spot by B-1069. And round out the top 5 as far as the most flights for a Falcon 9 first stage booster, B-1076 with 20. Booster on tap today, B-1080, is flying for a 16th time, having flown most recently just a little over a month ago back in January on the 13th. Here's a look at a bar chart of the Falcon flights so far on the year. SpaceX is looking to mark Falcon 9 launch number 21 here in just a little more than 38 minutes from now. This is not the only orbital flight that is happening, though, around the world. In fact, just minutes before this Falcon 9 is set to take off, we've got the launch of a Rocket Lab Electron rocket that's going to be taking flight from New Zealand. The 60th launch of an Electron, as a matter of fact. If you'd like to read more about that mission, we've got a preview article up on our website right now for you, spaceflightnow.com, to check that out as we're counting down here. Going to keep our focus and attention on this Falcon 9 rocket, but for those of you who want to see all of what's going on, you could pull up a separate tab and keep tabs on that. Ba-dum-ps. Taking a look at our live chat here, want to thank channel member Goku for being with us now for 4 months, who says, I don't think I'll see it, meaning the Falcon 9 rocket, from the West Coast today, but I'll give it a shot. Best of luck. I know the clouds are suboptimal for seeing the launch today, even for those of us here on the East Coast. Time now T minus 34 minutes, 6 seconds and counting. At this point, assuming SpaceX is still targeting that T0 at 6:21 p.m. Eastern, propellant load should be getting underway. As we're looking for signs of the start of prop load, assuming we don't have confirmation from SpaceX directly, here's what we're looking for. If you look through the soot that's coating the Falcon 9 first stage booster, you can still just barely make out the lettering of the word SpaceX. At the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster, here I'll go ahead and give you a punched in view of that. You can see just beneath the X there is a slightly lighter band that runs across the rocket. It's at that point where we will start to see a bit of a frost line form and some vapor, as well as the super cold densified liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Thankfully, conditions are such that there's not a lot of heat distortion between our cameras here at the press site and the Falcon 9 rocket itself, so we've got a really clear view and should be able to very distinctly see once that LOX starts really discernibly flowing on board that first stage. In fact, it already starting to look like you can see a little bit of vapor there starting to puff away. Yeah, you can very clearly see that now just beneath the X in SpaceX. You see those little wisps of vapor. It's a result of the LOX that's being loaded being a much colder temperature than the comparably far warmer, more humid Florida air around it. And with this view here, we've got good confirmation that prop load is underway on this Falcon 9 rocket, which means SpaceX is locking into that T0 time of 6:21 p.m. Eastern, 23:21 UTC. SpaceX uses a load and go style of fueling, which essentially means that once prop load has begun, they are locking into that T0 time. Time now T-minus 27 minutes, 24 seconds and counting as fueling continues on the Falcon 9 rocket. First off, want to thank all of you who are with us live at this point in the countdown process. So to the 4,400 of you, appreciate you stopping by here tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, sharing the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. I also want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. Shout out to Computers Shot for joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Thanks to Don Pierce for a $2 super chat. Super Tech Boy for a $2 super chat, who says this is going to Will's Travel to Rocket Lab Fund. Well, hopefully someday I can make it down to New Zealand for a launch, but far more probably will be waiting for the first launch of a Neutron rocket and heading up to Wallops Island. I think that's just a little bit more practical in the budgetary sense. Certainly appreciate the support. Also want to thank the astronomers for a $10 super chat, one of our wonderful channel members, who says they're in the middle of an 8 degrees, I'm guessing Fahrenheit, blizzard in Missouri, but we are warmed by watching Spaceflight now tonight. Go team. Thanks for the kind words and sending warm thoughts your way. Hopefully the heater in your home or apartment is doing you just fine tonight. Bringing it back here to the mission at hand, T-minus 25 minutes, 47 seconds to go. As mentioned at the top of the broadcast, this is the first time that SpaceX is going to be targeting a booster landing, touching down in the island nation of the Bahamas. So let's go ahead and talk a little trajectory, shall we? Ahead of the launch of Starlink 10-12. Of course, SpaceX will start this mission, as it does so many others, lifting off from its workhorse pad, that is Space Launch Complex 40, otherwise known as Slick 40, near Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Falcon 9 will fall in a southeasterly trajectory, but instead of having its first stage booster land well to the east of the Bahamas, it's going to be targeting a touchdown following that red arc you see there with a landing anticipated on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This particular landing is kind of close to Exuma Cays, so south of the main island of Exuma for folks who are familiar with the north of the main island of Exuma. If successful, this will mark the 110th booster landing for this particular drone ship and the 410th booster landing for SpaceX to date. A little bit downrange of where the booster is going to be landing on that drone ship, if all goes well, SpaceX's recovery vessel Bob is on standby to scoop up the fairing halves that will be used on this mission that are currently encapsulating the 23 Starlink satellites. They will splash down in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under the support of parachutes that are steerable. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery effort, so it's an important part of their business model to recover them as often as possible and reuse them. Once brought aboard the recovery vessel Bob, named after former NASA astronaut Bob Behnken, one half of the duo that flew the Demo 2 mission in May of 2020, those fairing halves will be brought back into Port Canaveral and brought over to the Hangar X site here at the Kennedy Space Center for refurbishment and preparation for future missions. This is what that recovery process looks like when they're being brought on board. As SpaceX has been preparing for this mission for a number of years, working with the government of the Bahamas. They were very much wanting to bring this possibility of landing here, make it a reality in order to allow the Falcon 9 rocket to send a variety of payloads to different orbital destinations, including helping to support human spaceflight opportunities with polar orbits like the upcoming FRAM-2 mission. So before we go ahead and see the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket, I want to take a quick look at a video supported or produced by SpaceX to give you a better idea of what's coming ahead in the next 21 minutes.
This is significant for the Bahamas in so many ways. The first international landing in the Bahamas, in the Exuma Sound, is significant in and of itself. It puts us at the cutting edge of innovation, and it gives us a small country of 400,000 people to an opportunity to participate in the aerospace industry. This is huge.
You know, it's really the beginning of the future. This is something we've been working on for several years now. We're hopeful that this collaboration enables us to fly the first polar crew mission that will have a booster landing in the Bahamian waters too.
We've long been known for tourism. Bahamas is now going beyond sun, sand, and sea. We hope that millions of people will observe from the Bahamas this event over the coming years. It's an opportunity for collaboration with academia and the University of Bahamas. It's an opportunity really to advance careers for young Bahamians.
The spaceport of Florida has really evolved since the Apollo era with shuttle. And then now Falcon 9 is the most reliable orbital class rocket ever built. This is not a test flight. This is an operational vehicle for America and many other countries. The world depends on Falcon. So safety and reliability are our highest priorities.
We have retained Aisha Bowe, a Bahamian in the aerospace industry. She is working in partnership with us to ensure that we pull all of the pieces together. We recognize that it's important that safety is put first and foremost, and we have ensured that we have done the due diligence and we've done our work to deliver this first international landing in the Exuma Sound.
And as that video wraps up, we've got the big vent starting there at the pad right on time, starting at T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds. Good visual indication that fueling is in fact moving along as expected. The big vent is a good visual hallmark as well. That second stage liquid oxygen loading is getting ready to begin here in the next roughly 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Now T-minus 16 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. As you see, the big vent has wrapped up. And here on the next handful of seconds, second stage liquid oxygen load will get underway. So far, all is moving quite smoothly with the countdown of today's Falcon 9 rocket launch. As it just so happens, this 16th flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster will also be the 16th orbital launch from Florida as well. Taking a live look right now at the drone ship. Just read the instructions, which is stationed in the islands of the Bahamas. Now getting pad level views of the Falcon 9 rocket as well. Now T-minus 13 minutes, 52 seconds and counting. SpaceX confirms at this point that they are on track with today's launch, tracking no issues on either range conditions or the Falcon 9 rocket. Now T-minus 11 minutes, 54 seconds and counting. Next milestone coming up, of course, will be the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster. That's coming up at T-minus 7 minutes and counting. Want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. I want to take another look at the drone ship near the Exumas. It was a very quick look at the drone ship, but you may have noticed how calm the waters were in the vicinity. It's one of the advantages that SpaceX is looking to take advantage of with the ability of landing in the Bahamas, especially when it comes to conditions like during hurricane season over the summer and in the back half of the year. Want to thank Hike All Over for a $5 super chat. Appreciate you, Hike. Want to welcome in new channel member Linda Hollister, and thank you to Daniel H. for gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Appreciate that generosity. To our two newest channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. And to our gifted channel member, if you haven't already, be sure to thank Daniel H. in the live chat. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Also, big thank you to channel member Mitchell Wilbur for a very generous $50 super chat. Really appreciate that level of generosity and support, Mitchell. And thanks for being a channel member with us. As we're getting ready to see this Falcon 9 rocket fly, let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about SpaceX's workhorse vehicle, which stands 70 meters or 229 feet tall and has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Majority of that, of course, is made up by the Falcon 9's first stage, bottom two-thirds of the rocket. Today's booster, tail number 1080, going for its 16th flight today. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Again, today they are using the drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. And at first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that upper stage, the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same prop mix as the first stage, that being liquid oxygen and kerosene. Following the deployment of the Starlink satellites, there will be one final burn of the upper stage. That's a deorbit burn, driving the upper stage back into the atmosphere where it's designed to burn up and help eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings that are currently encapsulating the 23 Starlink satellites. The fairing halves are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Fairing halves will be recovered a little further downrange from where the first stage is set to land on the drone ship, and they gently splash down under steerable parachutes. SpaceX will use the recovery vessel Bob to scoop those fairing halves up and bring them back into Port Canaveral, then over to the Hangar X site where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. SpaceX says one of the fairing halves that's being used on today's flight is flying for a 22nd time today. Now currently T-minus 6 minutes, 11 seconds, and counting. Call for stage 1 RP1 loading wrap up. Time now T-minus 4 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. SpaceX is making preparations for the strong back retract sequence, which is getting underway here momentarily. Taking a look there at the payload fairings, just beneath those, you can see the clamp arms opening up, and shortly you'll be seeing the strong back pull back a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Now less than 4 minutes to go to the planned liftoff. As we're cruising into the final few minutes of the count, I want to thank just a few more folks for their support. Thanks to channel member Mel Roberts Harrell for a $5 super chat, who says, "So glad to be back and getting to watch with all the Spaceflight Now pros and this great chat community." Thanks for the kind words, Mel. Thanks as well to channel member Ryan Snyder with a $5 super chat, who says, "Love the Spaceflight Now family." And as we're now just about 3 minutes away from seeing this Falcon 9 rocket lift off, we do have confirmation from a rocket lab that its 60th Electron rocket launch to date, the mission fast near space belts, has had a successful liftoff from Launch Complex 1 down in Mahia, New Zealand. So congrats to Rocket Lab for its 60th Electron to date. Less than 3 minutes to go. The Falcon 9 first stage liquid oxygen tank at this point will be full. Just got confirmation of that. In now less than 30 seconds, the second stage liquid oxygen tank should be full as well. Less than 2 minutes and counting. Confirmation of stage 2 LOX load. That additional venting are the ground gas closeouts, as the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant.
One of the next visual milestones we're likely to see is going to be the TE LOX line venting. It actually looks like it may have started there on your screen because we're seeing those white.
Now just a little over a minute away from liftoff. T-minus 1 minute and counting. At this point, the Falcon 9 will be entering startup. Should be hearing the call out for that momentarily.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
With that good confirmation, we're now just about 40 seconds away from liftoff. Just waiting for the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch. That's coming up here in just a few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that, we are less than 30 seconds away from liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket, targeting its first booster landing in the Bahamas here, 20 seconds to liftoff. 15 seconds. And here we go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 10-12 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Now a little more than a minute here into flight. Falcon 9 passing through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Some tricky tracking as the Falcon 9 has been cruising among the clouds here. Falcon 9 will be preparing the upper stage engine now for its burn. MVAC engine chill. There will be a confirmation of MVAC chill. Now approaching a few events in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation. And then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine at about T plus 2 minutes and 35 seconds. And then deployment of the payload fairings a little bit after the 3-minute mark. Some nice views of orbital sunset. Falcon 9 following a nominal trajectory at this point.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good call-outs from SpaceX. Now we're just waiting on the payload fairings to be deployed. Getting some intermittent views amid the clouds. Fairing deployment has happened in real time, waiting for the SpaceX feed.
Great views there that we have confirmation of fairing separation.
Separation confirmed.
Some good views of the Falcon 9 first stage booster and the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Next milestone here coming up in about 2 minutes in real time. It's going to be the start of the first stage entry burn, when there will be 3 of the Merlin engines on the first stage booster that will relight. This entry burn is set to last about 25 seconds in total. Those puffs that you're seeing occasionally between the first and between the grid fins on the first stage, those are the cold gas thrusters, helping to adjust the attitude of the positioning of the booster as it makes its way towards the drone ship. At this point, the booster has passed its apogee, making its way towards the drone ship now. Now a little more than 5 minutes in real time. Get a good view up through the inner stage on the booster on the left-hand side of your screen. Now, a little more than 6 minutes into flight, the entry burn will be happening now in real time. When you see that begin on the SpaceX feed. See the beginning of that entry burn. Now a little more than 7 minutes into flight. Believe that glimpse that we got just a second ago was what the tracking cameras in the Bahamas from SpaceX are seeing near the Exumas. Again, this will be the first time that SpaceX attempts a booster landing within the island nation of the Bahamas. Now 7.5 minutes into flight. First stage landing burn using just one of the Merlin engines on the booster. It's set to begin here in the next 10 seconds in real time, so those who are in the area, turn your eyes to the skies, you'll be seeing that entry burn starting right about now. Should see that from the SpaceX feed here in just about 10 seconds. If you do happen to catch a view of it, be sure to tag us on X or other social media. I'd love to see the photos or video you're able to capture of this.
Landing burn.
And great call out there for landing burn startup.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Of the Falcon 9 first stage. We're now waiting for Falcon 9 to land on Just Read the Instructions, currently off the coast of the Bahamas.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you heard that call out for successful landing of our Falcon 9 rocket, and you can hear the cheering behind me. Welcome to the Bahamas, Falcon 9. Now, as a reminder, this was the 16th launch and landing for this first stage. And meanwhile, that second stage is on track to complete the rest of its mission today to deliver 23 Starlink satellites to
Impact
low Earth
shutdown.
orbit.
That will bring to a close our coverage of SpaceX's 21st launch of the year and 234th Starlink mission to date. Today's launch will further increase Starlink's capacity to deliver high-speed, low-latency connectivity across the globe. Streaming, video calls, online gaming, remote working, and more are now possible in even the most remote locations, thanks to the world's most advanced internet system.
And we're excited to continue working with the Bahamian government on this mutually beneficial.
Now T plus 9 minutes, 39 seconds, and counting to this mission. The commentators were talking over the point in the mission where we should have heard SECO, or second stage engine cutoff, and a nominal orbit insertion. Assuming both of those events did happen as expected, though, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 is currently in a coast phase that'll last until about T plus 55 minutes and 33 seconds. There will be a brief 2-second burn of the upper stage engine to support the circularization of the orbit. And the Starlink satellites will be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 27 seconds. Being that this is a Starlink launch, SpaceX still following the typical model that we've gotten accustomed to seeing, though they are not going to be continuing broadcasting the tracking of the upper stage and showing live deployment of the Starlink satellites on this mission. So we'll check back in with their social channels for confirmation of a good deployment when it becomes available. Before we go ahead and conclude our broadcast with our mission stats as they currently stand, certainly appreciate all of you who have been with us for this first booster landing in the Bahamas today. I want to thank a few folks for their support in the live chat. Our thanks to Grant Greenwell for a $5 super chat, who says, "Sail safe from Mads and Cricket. Thanks for providing such great coverage." Thank you for the kind words, Grant. The True Review crew with a $5 super chat. Thank you to the crew. Wayne's Poke World, one of our channel members, with a £5 super chat saying much love. Thank you, Wayne. Grant Greenwell with another $5 super chat saying Go Falcon 9 from Mads and Cricket. Mario Bernard with a $2 super chat. Appreciate you, Mario. Stephen Frazier marking 12 months with us, a full year as a channel member at the pad leader level, saying go SpaceX, go Starlink, full send. And want to welcome in our newest channel members, one gifted by Psychonaut69 and David Wheatley joining of his own accord. Channel membership at the pad leader level. Appreciate you, David. And to our newest gifted member, welcome aboard. I'm glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Psychonaut69 in the live chat if you haven't already. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. And with a good liftoff and landing of the Falcon 9 first stage, as well as a good beginning to the Rocket Lab Electron rocket launch happening just a few minutes before, we've got some updated mission stats from around the world. So let's hop to it and begin to close things out tonight. This liftoff and landing was the 16th flight of the Falcon 9 first stage booster B-1080 in the SpaceX fleet. It marked the 438th Falcon 9 launch to date. This was the company's 21st flight of 2025. It was their 382nd Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. No Falcon Heavies yet so far, which means this is also the 21st orbital launch for SpaceX of the year so far. The 139th orbital launch within the last 365 days. This was the 234th SpaceX orbital launch from Pad 40 and the 288th overall orbital flight from this particular space launch complex. Here's the bar chart of Falcon flights as it currently stands, looking throughout the years. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 110th landing of a booster on the drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. Marked the 328th successful SpaceX drone ship landing and the 410th overall SpaceX booster landing to date as well. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 16th orbital launch from the Sunshine State, the 22nd orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 24th launch from U.S. Rocket Company, again thanks to Rocket Lab's 2 Electron flights this month from down in New Zealand. And this was the 34th orbital launch around the world. So far, 0 orbital failures. Here's where the pie chart now stands. Once again, I want to thank you all for spending part of your Tuesday evening with us as you saw a little bit of SpaceX history being made with the first booster landing down there in the Bahamas. Many more to come as SpaceX now opens up this as an opportunity for them and future flights, including the upcoming crewed launch of the Fram-2 quartet to a polar orbit. SpaceX commentators saying that was in the coming weeks. No firm launch date has been announced by SpaceX just yet on that, but keep your eyes peeled, and of course we'll have live launch coverage of that and information about it leading up to that mission as it comes around. Want to thank our wonderful moderators in the live chat for helping us out today. Thanks to Jeff Hansen, Callistia Lee, Mark Otto, Rick Donner, and Aussie Space Girl. Appreciate all of you for hanging out with us today, helping out in the live chat. Want to thank our photography team today. Had Michael Kane out and about, our friend John Pisani joining the crew today as well. And thanks to Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images and Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions for trying to navigate through the clouds. It's not easy to track on a day like this, and we appreciate the full team for all of their efforts. Want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you are watching from. For the latest on orbital launch opportunities coming up both here in Florida and elsewhere around the world, go ahead head on over to spaceflightnow.com, click that launch schedule tab, subscribe to the YouTube channel here, and make sure you've got notifications turned on, and that way you'll be notified the next time we have a live launch broadcast or a new video come up on the channel. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.